I've seen guys that spent $30,000, $40,000 cash on duplexes, got a property manager. Things went okay for a couple months. The tenants ended up leaving.
Welcome, my friend, to the best real estate investing advice ever show. I'm Joe Fairless, and before we get into the show in today's episode, which I know you'll get a lot of value from because we stay out of all the fluffy stuff and we get straight into the good stuff of real estate investing advice, I want to give a quick shout out to today's sponsor, and that's Patch of Land. They are making this show possible, and they're making tons of flipping projects possible all across the country. If you don't know about Patch of Land, then they are the number one company to go to for projects that you're flipping because they have all the money available right now. Once you get approved for your deal and yourself as a sponsor or a borrower, you're going to be funded by them, and then they go raise the money through their crowdfunding platform. So you don't have to worry about all that. They'll take care of the money and the funding for you. You just have to worry about making sure your project's a success. They've got something really cool for you. So if you are just learning about crowdfunding, they've come up with a guide. It's called the Top 10 Crowdfunding Questions Guide. And they're all the questions that you might be asking yourself. And they're all the answers. They don't leave you hanging. They got answers too. All the answers to those 10 crowdfunding questions. So you can go to patchofland.com/best ever and get that guide. And if you think you know everything about crowdfunding, I'd check this guide out just in case, because there are some interesting aspects that you'll learn. So go to patchofland.com/best ever and get that guide. Best ever listeners, how you doing? Welcome to the best real estate investing advice ever show. I'm Joe Fairless. This is the show where we get straight to the good stuff on real estate investing advice. We don't get into any of that fluffy stuff. We go straight into all the things that can help you move your business forward in real estate investing. Today we've got a guest, and I'm really excited to share our conversation with you. It's James Wise. How you doing, James?
Hey, Joe. How you doing?
I'm doing really well. Thanks for being on the show. And James is the co-founder of the Holton Wise Property Group, which is based in Cleveland, Ohio. He's a real estate broker, and his company manages a portfolio of about 250 units. And of those 250, they own about 100 of them. So he's actively investing, and he's also doing some brokerage stuff. He is a huge, even though he's in Cleveland, he's a huge Los Angeles Lakers fan. So we'll have to figure out what the deal with that is, right?
Whoa. No.
No, okay. Maybe I mixed up my show notes. Sorry about that.
Whoa. I am a huge Cleveland Cavaliers fan, Joe.
Oh, I must have misheard you earlier. My bad.
Oh, man.
I've got so many listeners in California, so I want to keep them happy. So I throw out some California references as much as I can. He's a huge Cleveland Cavaliers fan. So with that being said, James, you want to talk a little bit about what you're focused on now with real estate and what you've been up to?
Yeah, absolutely. Right now, my company, as you said, we manage 250 units. 100 of those we own. We're a full-fledged brokerage and property management company. So the majority of our business is geared towards investors. We work primarily with out-of-state investors looking to buy rental property here in Cleveland. So we do work with a lot of Lakers fans to buy rental properties, but they're all in Cleveland. So they reach out to us. We work on their behalf to find the best deals on the market for them, and then we broker the deal for them, act as their buyer agents. We handle any repairs necessary to get the property rent ready, and then we handle the property management for them. And when they're ready to liquidate, we handle the sale for them.
Wow, what a nice business model. How did you get into that?
Yeah, it's a really good business model. I like it. It's similar to turnkey, except for my goal is to never buy the property and then sell it to them. I don't want to buy the property. I feel doing it this way, our interests are more aligned. Because obviously, if I'm putting up my money to buy the property, my goal would be to sell the property for as much money as I possibly can. And
Right.
the investor's goal, and I'm trying to build a long-term relationship with that investor, his or her goal is always going to be to buy the property for as low as they can. So doing it this way, our interests are more aligned and my inventory is much bigger. It's not bottlenecked to what we can actually buy, rehab, and then sell. Everything available in our operating market, is open for the taking.
Yeah, and there's a lot of accountability on your end with this model because you're selling them the property, but then you're also responsible for managing it according to whatever pro forma you've initially established.
Exactly.
That's very unique. That's pretty cool. When did you start this company?
I've been investing in real estate since 2009. Originally, when I started doing this, we actually did not have the goal or the idea to start a brokerage doing this. I was a real estate agent. My partner, John Holton, has been a general contractor for 15, 20 years. And we've known each other through mutual friends for about 10 years now. And before that, we just decided to hook up. He owned a rental property. I owned one rental property. We hooked up together and we started buying rental properties of our own. We got up to about 10 rental properties. And then I found websites and other investors interested in this thing. So I started telling everybody what it is that we were doing and talking to other people about what we were doing. And there turned out to be a pretty huge demand for people looking for guys like us to help them buy properties in the Midwestern markets such as Cleveland, because they're out in California and everything is obviously so much more expensive. It's pretty much impossible to get cash flow. So we noticed there was a need, and we just kind of switch gears a little bit with our business model to fulfill that need, and it has turned out really well for us.
When you're looking at a property to broker and to do the repairs and the management, how do you qualify the deal initially for you to get going on it?
Well, the very first thing to us is the location. Cleveland is a very, very large area, and as people know, or if they don't know, they should know, there's a lot of bad areas of the city. We only focus on a very small section of the city of Cleveland and then some of the surrounding suburbs. So when I'm looking at a property that I would like to potentially sell to an investor, let's say in California, I only look at properties that are in zip codes where John and I actively manage and own our own properties. So any property that I send somebody, I know the neighborhood, I know the kind of tenants that are going to get put in that home. I know what the rents are going to be. I don't like to sell anybody anything that I wouldn't personally buy.
How many zip codes and what are those zip codes?
We work in Cleveland. Let me see. They're the southwestern zip codes. So 44109, 44135, 44111. And then a couple suburbs. We work Parma, Ohio, which is 44129, 44134. And then we work Brook Park. Can't remember the zip code of Brook Park off the top of my head.
Are all those basically Southwest Cleveland?
Yeah. We work the southwestern corner of Cleveland and then all the suburbs around it. Lakewood as well. We also work Lakewood.
Why Southwest? And can you educate us on the other regions of Cleveland, just kind of giving us the high-level overview of them?
The reason we chose Southwest is that's where we're from. That's where we know everything. That's where we grew up. So we comprehend and we understand the community. We have expert knowledge about that community. Like Parma, for instance, our office location is in Parma. I grew up in Parma. John grew up in Parma. We both went to Parma High. I went to college in Parma.
What college is in Parma?
Cuyahoga Community College.
Awesome.
Yeah, I got a business degree from them. So that's where we grew up. That's where our expertise lies. So, of course, the prices, they work for rental properties, and that's what we know. So there's never any reason to try to go anywhere else.
It sounds like it's more of a case of you being familiar and knowing that area versus intentionally not investing in other areas.
Right. You should always, if you can afford to, you should invest right in your backyard. Your goal should be to invest in the closest possible property to what you know, if it makes sense. In this particular area, it does make sense. So, yeah, we never wanted to venture out, and I don't think we ever will.
Let's dig into that a little bit. You said if you can afford to, your goal is to invest in your own backyard. How do you determine if it makes sense or not? What do you look at?
Well, you have to run the numbers on the property and see if it can actually cash flow.
And that's based on whatever your cash flow goals are, right?
Yes.
And with the properties that you're buying, what's a typical deal look like?
We buy properties in a couple different asset classes. The suburban properties, we're looking at properties that are going to be single family houses priced. I'm talking all in, like you purchase the property and we put a couple $1,000s of, cosmetic rehab into it. We're looking at properties that are going to cost between $65,000 and $75,000, and they're going to rent for about $900 to $1,000. And then when we're on the Cleveland side, we're looking primarily at duplexes. Those are going to run, $65,000 to $80,000, and the rents are going to be between $550 and $650 per unit.
How's the supply right now?
The supply is pretty good. As far as Cleveland goes, over the last 24 months, prices have been, going up. I would say in the suburbs, it's getting harder and harder to find single-family homes in the $65,000 to $75,000 range. They're slowly creeping back up. Some of the really, really nice single-family houses in cities like Parma, they're going for $100,000.
And then you said homes and duplexes. I believe you also do more units than that, right?
Yes, we do apartment buildings as well. We do those in the same general area, and we typically do joint ventures on those with other investors. So we'll bring in a capital investor from typically out of state. They'll put up a large portion of the down payment. We'll put up a smaller portion of the down payment. We'll handle all the property management, but we do the property management at no charge. And then when we broker the deal, there's usually a pretty decent sized real estate commission. We also put that back into the deal as well.
With the properties that you've been working on, because you said your team's responsible for handling the repairs, are there common repairs in Cleveland? Because I know, in Texas, or at least in Dallas-Fort Worth, there's foundation issues always. What about Cleveland?
Outside of the normal repairs that you're going to have all across the country, the interior of the units with the tenants, causing damage, something you have to worry about in Cleveland in the winter. It gets very, very cold, especially if the house sits empty or nobody's monitoring the house, or it might have been improperly insulated. You might run into freezing pipes, which is never good.
No, it's not good at all.
No, it is not.
Yeah. Fortunately, I've escaped that so far, but I know I will not be so lucky in the future. There's going to be something that's going to happen eventually. What do you do when pipes freeze?
When pipes freeze, you got to shut the water supply off, and then you have to drain all the pipes, and you got to check for cracks, and you got to cut that part of the pipe out and replace it.
And how do you prevent pipes from freezing?
You got to keep the heat on, and you got to make sure everything is properly insulated. This year we had a record cold winter out in Cleveland, so a couple pipes in a few houses that have never had a problem before even ended up freezing. And at that point, you just have to turn the water off and cut that part out and replace it.
All right, James, this is the big part of the show. What is your best real estate investing advice ever?
My best real estate investing advice, especially if you're looking to invest out of state, would be to do your due diligence. I suggest you fly out to the particular areas you're interested in. I suggest you drive around those areas, get a feel for the neighborhoods, see the houses, see the type of people in those neighborhoods to make sure that it's something you're comfortable with. I have countless stories of investors that I've met through other sites that ended up purchasing houses in Cleveland on the complete wrong side of town. I've seen guys that spent $30,000, $40,000 cash on duplexes, got a property manager. Things went okay for a couple months. The tenants ended up leaving. The house got totally stripped, furnaces, hot water tanks, plumbing, everything taken out. And they're in such distressed areas, you couldn't even sell the house for nearly what you paid. It wouldn't make sense to put it back together. I've had a few people that I had to sell their house that they bought for $30,000, $40,000. They reached out to me, and I ended up selling their house for $3,000, $4,000, $5,000. So by taking a trip out to Cleveland and seeing the difference between an area like that or a nice area, you won't run into that situation.
Where is an area like that in Cleveland?
There are rough pockets. Most of them are on the east side of Cleveland, the eastern area of the city of Cleveland that has some very, very rough spots. Nothing that I would ever consider investing in myself.
And when you're driving around the areas and looking at the houses and the neighborhoods. When you're looking at it, what are you looking for?
To see if it's, a horrible area versus a pretty solid area.
Yeah, how do you determine that?
Well, from an outside perspective, say you just flew into Cleveland, you don't know anything else other than what you're seeing while driving. If you're driving down a street and you pass 20 lots, 10 of them are empty because the house is torn down, and then another 5 lots are completely boarded up. You'll see houses where it's boarded up and people have spray painted very large on the plywood. The copper's gone, do not enter. If you see that, turn around. You're in the wrong area.
Reminds me of where I was born, Flint, Michigan, and driving through there recently.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's pretty easy to realize when you're driving if you're in a blighted area or not.
Have you ever gone outside of the Southwest zip code to invest in other properties and kind of got your hand slapped and then came back to what you're doing now?
No, not at all. And, I've grown up here, so I know what's what, and I would never, ever attempt or want to attempt to buy anything in areas I am uncomfortable with.
When you're working with a new client and that you're trying to determine what they're wanting to buy, what their goals are, how do you approach the initial conversation? Usually
when we're working with a new client, most clients find us through our website, and we have a little investor survey. They fill out their name, their email, if they've ever invested in rental property before, and what type of investment they're looking for. Some people are, they're only looking to do single-family houses in the suburbs. Other people are looking for single-family houses in maybe a C neighborhood to try to get a little bit higher returns. Some people want duplexes, triplexes. Other people want to go big. They want to go with the huge apartment buildings. So from there, we contact that investor. We really get to know them, see how many properties they want to buy. We check out their financial situation, see if they're looking to pay cash, if they're looking to finance. If they are looking to finance, have they ever talked to a lender before? If they haven't, we have a network of lenders that we set them up with. Really just, see what their goals are, and then see if our market has something that can achieve those goals. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. I think the very most important thing for an investor and also an operator is to see what the other side can do and wants to do very early on to make sure that you're actually a fit, because you're not going to be a fit for everybody.
When has it happened where it hasn't been a good fit for either you or them?
I mean, if I have single family houses that are renting for $1,000 and in my neighborhood they're trading for between $65,000 and $75,000, if I get an investor, and this happens all the time, we'll get investors that will be like, hey, I would love to buy 20 of those, but I only want to pay $35,000 per house. That's unfortunately not going to be a good fit.
Is there any opportunity to get a bulk discount?
Not really, because you're not buying them from the same sellers. We're taking things off the open market. So, if you buy 20 houses, you're buying 20 houses from 20 different owners.
When you're working with an investor and you have that initial conversation with them, what's the time frame usually from the first conversation to closing and giving each other a virtual high five?
That's going to be different per investor. We get investors, they're interested in investing now. They want to buy something as soon as possible. Other people just want us to send them information for 3, 4, 5, 6 months. They know they want to get involved, but they're just not ready. They want to see what the market has. They might also be checking into other markets. They want to see what Cleveland has to offer, and they're likely contacting people, in Cincinnati or Toledo or, Metro Michigan. They're looking to see all the different areas, and then maybe they're scheduling flights out to see which area they like. So, it's totally different. I have had investors that are incredibly aggressive. They look at a few properties, they look at a few ads, all via the internet, and they're ready to go. Other people want to fly out and meet the whole team, which I absolutely encourage. I encourage meeting the teams and driving the neighborhoods, especially if you're a new investor. Sometimes when we get investors, we'll get people that have been investing in real estate for 20 years. They got 30, 40 houses. They kind of already know the ball game, and they're comfortable making a very quick decision. But especially for the new investor, absolutely take the trip out and fly and see the neighborhood.
James, you ready for the best ever lightning round?
No, I'm ready for the best ever lightning round.
Oh, all right.
Oh, I am ready.
You are ready.
I'm ready.
Let's do it. First, let's hear a quick word from our best ever partners. Crowdfunding. You've heard about it. Now it's time for you to learn about it. Our best ever sponsor today, Patch of Land, they're the leading expert in the crowdfunding space, and they've got all the answers to all of your crowdfunding questions. Go to patchofland.com/best ever and get your copy of the top 10 answers to the top 10 crowdfunding questions. That's patchofland.com/best ever. How about getting a financial model from a financial modeling expert? I think that is a brilliant idea. Our previous best ever guest, Bruce Kirsch, it's episode 128. The episode's titled Crash Course on Financial Modeling for Real Estate Investing. He's got a special offer for you. And instead of spending hours running the numbers on deals that don't work, his new software, Evaluate, can help you filter out the bad ones in just a couple minutes. And you can try it for free. Free. Just go to app.getrefm.com. I know it's a kind of a funky URL, but you should do it because I've done it, and it's a really cool system that he's got set up. app.getref.com. All right, let's do it, my friend. Best ever book you've read?
I've only read one business book, so it's going to have to be Multiple Streams of Income.
Who wrote that?
I believe his name was Robert G. I read this thing about 11 years ago. It's not even necessarily about real estate either. It's just about business. The whole premise was you should always have multiple streams of income. In case one of your streams were to dry up, you have several other sources of income coming in. So a lot of stuff in the book, may or may not be practical, but just the entire premise that the guy had, I loved it. Always spinning multiple plates.
Best ever personal growth experience, and what did you learn from it?
I would say the best ever personal growth experience would just be doing some of our first deals, working with tenants for the first time. We didn't exactly follow everything by the book. We did a lot of our tenant screening, and a lot of our decisions were made off of gut, and most of it worked out pretty well. Sometimes there's a couple issues, but learning that you have to get your systems in place and adhere to your systems has really helped my career.
Best ever deal you've done?
The best ever deal I did was an apartment building. We bought it at the very end of last year. It's a 21-unit apartment building. It was pretty expensive. It was $635,000. The reason that I think it was the best ever deal is we originally started the process with another investor that I had met online, and we went back and forth for a couple weeks and decided we wanted to do a deal together. He sent in some earnest money. We got the building under contract. We did inspections. Everything was good. A little bit down the road, something changed in his camp. He ended up involved in a larger deal, and he could no longer do both deals. So we were a little bit stuck. We did all this work with the listing broker, and now our partner's gone. So he gave me 48 hours. He said, if you can find another partner in 48 hours, we're good. So in that 48-hour time period, I had to figure out how am I going to find a capital investor, because we needed about $140,000 to get it done. Trying to find $140,000 in 48 hours can sometimes be difficult. But we managed to find two other partners to come on and do the deal with us. And then everything was going smoothly. The seller happened to be doing a 1031 exchange, and the bank, we were assuming the loan, but the bank ended up dragging their feet. And it got to the point where it was December 31st. And if this thing didn't close in 2014, the seller had he was going to take a potential tax hit of $50,000 if it went into January. So if I didn't get this thing closed out at the last possible day in 2014, the whole thing was going to fall apart. We managed to get everything filed about an hour before the title company closed on that Friday.
Wow.
Yeah. So we were 1 hour away from losing a 21-unit apartment building. So one partner ends up out of the deal, brought in another two partners, and then literally went down to the last hour of that year. But we still got it done.
How'd you find the money within 48 hours?
I actually called upon some other investors. One of my biggest investors, he's a person that's been buying houses from me nonstop. I probably sell him 4 to 5 houses a month, and we manage them for him. I just presented everything to him. I'm like, look, this is where we're at. These are the numbers on the building. He's like, wow, I think that's a great deal. I'll be honest with you though, I don't have $140,000. However, I have a friend that's been wanting to get involved with this. He's like, let me make a couple phone calls. He called up one of his friends, and his friend was like, yeah, absolutely. So the 3 of us did the deal.
Best ever project you're most excited about right now?
Best ever project I am most excited about right now. I am in the process of working on it's kind of a different project. Right now it is a 43-unit building. It's being operated half as a motel, the other half as an apartment building. I have the listing right now, but we're also open to joint venturing it because our plan for this building would be to completely run it as an apartment building. There's 32 units in there that some of them are being rented monthly. Others are just being rented as a motel. We'd like to add some kitchenettes in there and just completely run them as studio apartments. It's actually right across the street from that other building I was just talking about. So I'm pretty excited about that deal. It's going to be the biggest deal we've done if we can pull it off.
Best ever way you like to give back?
We sponsor a lot of local teams, local t-ball teams, baseball teams, soccer teams. We just like to give back to the kids in the community, help them out with things like that.
And what would you say, in your experience as a real estate investor, is the biggest mistake you've made?
Some of the bigger mistakes, looking back, would be how we screened our tenants when we first got started. We didn't have other online resources to go to look for experience. I only ever read one book, which wasn't even 100% a real estate book. So I did a lot of learning, trial by fire. You try something, maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. If it doesn't work, you try something else. I never really got burned too bad. Everything kind of worked out pretty well for me. But looking back, we could have ran into some serious problems. One of the first houses I bought, they always say you should purchase a house and have 6 months of reserves. I ended up purchasing this house and didn't even have the money to do a $5,000 or $6,000 rehab. I had to use Home Depot credit cards, H.H. Gregg credit cards. Going forward, that's not how you want to go into a rental property. You never want to go into a rental property undercapitalized. But, I was new, I was fresh, I was hungry, and I just went for it. I don't recommend others do it, but it did work out well for me. I got lucky.
And what's the best ever place to reach you, James?
The best ever place to reach me would be our website, www.holtonwise.com or holtonwisepropertygroup.com. And also you can reach me on Twitter at JamesHWPG.
And what's the website again?
holtonwisepropertygroup.com, or we bought the shortened version of the URL, holtonwise.com.
All right. Well, James, thank you so much for sharing your advice and also your love for the Los Angeles Lakers. Appreciate that. I'm not even a Los Angeles Lakers fan. I don't know why I keep saying
I know
this,
you're out in New York, my man.
I found the bone. And so I just want to keep tugging at it. I'm actually in Cincinnati now. I moved from New York City to Cincinnati, so I'm your Ohio brethren.
So you moved out in New York?
I sure did.
Did you move out of New York to continue running? Because I know you bought that really large complex down in Cincinnati. Am I correct?
You are correct. And I've got a development deal in the works in northern Kentucky too, so I just wanted to be a lot closer to that stuff. And it was time for lifestyle change. But this conversation has just been great to hear about your business model. I really like the alignment of interests that you mentioned, called out, where you broker the deal, you handle the repairs, you handle the property management, and then if they decide to sell, then you handle that later. Because so many times we get into properties, or there's potential to get into properties where you're sold one thing, but it turns out to be something else. And I really like this. This holds you accountable throughout the entire process. And I think the alignment there is awesome. It's great to hear. And how you qualify a deal to work on. First, you look at the location, and being in Cleveland where, any market's it has its rough patches. And in Cleveland, you're focused on the Southwest zip codes, and you went through all the zip codes. I was only able to write down one of them, but best ever listeners, you can write down others. One of them I wrote down was 44111, as well as the suburbs around that area. And knowing the market, not only knowing the market, but if you're investing in another market, then flying out to the area you're interested in, driving around, look at the homes, look at the community. What I do is I like to find the closest McDonald's, and I see when that was built, because that gives me a sense of the progress of that area. And then I also look to see where the Walmart is and go from there, because that usually is a good indicator. Now, it might not be the McDonald's with fast food kind of decreasing.
Well, you got to look for the nearest Chipotle.
I was about to say that, exactly. Yeah, the Chipotle, look for those where the nearest one is. That will be a very good indicator of path of progress. So thank you for being on the show. And obviously, I want to mention the resourcefulness that you had with the 140K in 48 hours. And really, that's a story of what you built up until that point, and then also putting yourself in that position to close on that property. Because if you hadn't had gotten into that deal in the first place, then you wouldn't be in a position to close on it, even though you had to scramble within 48 hours. So I had something very similar happen to me. Not quite as extreme as your 140K in 48 hours. I had about 220K in about 2 weeks, which was challenging for me too on my first property. It was actually the Cincinnati property that you mentioned. But you put yourself in that position, and then things just tend to align themselves. So thank you for being on the show, sharing your advice, and we'll talk to you soon.
Actually, Joe, if I could add one more thing. You were telling the best of listeners they can go back and write down some of the zip codes. Another thing that I have provided on the website, biggerpockets.com, if someone were to go to my profile, James Wise, I have actually drawn up a comprehensive map of all the areas we invest in, the type of quality tenants that you're going to receive, the kind of rents you're going to get. So the best of listeners may take a big benefit by reading that if they're ever interested in looking into Cleveland, Ohio.
Sweet. Sounds good. Go check it out, best ever listeners.
All right, Joe. Thank you.